Hey, everybody, it is Trags, Mike Petralia, back with another episode of the JungleRoar podcast following a 23-20 overtime loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers in the 2022 season opener. I am joined again by my good friend and colleague on the Bengals beat, the one and only James Rapien of SI.com, allbengals.com, locked in Bengals. How you doing, James?
I'm good. Mike, how you doing, Trags?
No complaints. I'm happy the season is finally underway. Lots to unpack from what Zach Taylor and Darren Simmons talked about on Monday, post-mortem, the Steelers' loss. And I want to first of all get to the fact that Zach Taylor acknowledged he needs to slow the game down at critical moments. And I think, we were talking about this in the press box, James, and Zach has and his staff have to get it right. They have to get game management down if this team is going to repeat its success of 2021. We're speaking specifically of the Jamar Chase catch at the goal line, 2:48 left in regulation. Replay clearly showed that he had the ball in his right arm, right foot on the white stripe. Replay would have indicated that that was a clear touchdown. Both feet were down in bounds, but he didn't take the time. He went out. He had the team rush to the line of scrimmage. What happens? Joe Mixon rushes for a loss of 2 yards. What say you?
It's awful. It's awful. It's the play of the game. It completely changes everything. As bad as the Bengals were up to that point, they had a shot and should have won the game. And there's a lot of other factors. It's not just Zach Taylor.
Sure.
But rushing up to the line, no one in Zach's ear. And he admitted that he was in Joe's ear, like, hey, let's go. Let's get this play going. Because he was worried that the Steelers might challenge it. And it's like, dude, someone radio down, because we were there, right. We didn't have a great angle, but it's like, man, that's close. And then you look at the broadcast and it's close. And suddenly Joe Mixon gets crushed and loses yardage. And that's the thing. This Bengals offense has been awful in short yardage situations.
Yes.
So you never want to say, oh, we're 6 inches away. That's going to happen. You're going to get it. Really? I don't think so. And so I hate that he was in Joe's ear and going to that extreme to get the playoff. That's the part. Because if you give anyone enough time to look at it again, you'd say, all right, challenge it. Now, I was surprised Jamar Chase wasn't more animated in real time.
Well, he didn't know, because sometimes, James, and you know this, when you're that on top of the play, you don't know if you were in or not, because it happens so fast. You're like, I think I was in, but don't ask me to say one way or another for sure.
Yeah. And so that's certainly the other aspect of this. But yeah, those are the things. And it's not just because I've gotten this since I was critical of Zach after that and about that decision. It wasn't just Sunday. There were questionable decisions game management wise last year. The Green Bay game comes to mind. The San Francisco game comes to mind. I'm not going to bring up Super Bowl 56. Oh, I just did. That comes to mind. And if the Bengals are going to take that next step, well, you need a staff and you need a head coach that's going to make the right decision in those tight moments more times than not. No one's perfect. I understand that. Absolutely. Joe Burrow threw 4 picks. They win if he throws 2 and not 4. So I get that. It's not just Zach Taylor. It's not all on him, but some of it is, especially at that stage of the game where the Bengals had just staged a 14-point comeback and not only had a chance, they should have won that game.
No, there's no question they should have won the game. And I think what frustrates Bengals fans, you had so many opportunities in that game to take the game by the throat in the last 5 minutes. In overtime, they had opportunities and just didn't capitalize. Certainly, the other play that's going to bring up, well, first of all, I want to get back to that goal line play, because what bothers me about that is if you're on the 6-inch line, you should be able to fall forward and get the touchdown. I believe that. And I know there are people out there who say, well, they don't want to risk Burrow getting hurt again. They don't want to risk what happened in Kansas City where he got his knee tweaked. They need to be able to come up with a way to get 6 inches, and it shouldn't be that complicated.
Yeah, that's another part of it. And they ran a sneak in overtime on 2nd and 1. And, it was after Burrow, I think, ran for 9 yards. They ran a sneak. They pick up the first down. It was part of that first drive. So it's not like they're afraid to do it. And I agree with you. I mean, now you have a center in Ted Karras who should be able to get some push. Cordell
Yes.
Volson will get pushed, and we saw it. Alex Kappa, I thought he played well for all the talk about the offensive line.
I
And
thought
so
the
to
middle
me,
three spots of the offensive line played well at points, very well in that game.
and so Volson's obviously the one of the three that is the question mark, because he is a 4th round rookie, but they should be able to get 6 inches, to your point. And so, yeah, the scramble drill that was happening on the sidelines to get the playoff,
Sure.
that's the part that can't happen.
No.
Right.
And if you're going to go tempo, not to interrupt you here, James, if you're going to go tempo, get Burrow to the line and have him fall forward when there is a likelihood that the Steelers' defensive front is not set. That's why you do that, not because you're trying to actually set up a set run and let Pittsburgh read it the way they did and knock them back for 2 yards.
And they were set. That's the worst. It's not like they weren't set. It's not like they caught the Steelers off guard. And yeah, it's just it was the wrong call. It cost the Bengals, and that can't keep happening. And I will say this: Zach admitted that he was wrong, all of those things. I don't think there's a worse feeling for a coach than something like that.
Well,
right. So hopefully he can learn from it.
Right. What he did on Monday, and I give Zach full props for this, because say what you will about Zach and game management, and he's still learning in his, 19, 20, 21, his 4th NFL season as head coach. He's still learning, and maybe that's, that really ticks Bengal fans off, but that's just the way it is. Sometimes it does take that long for NFL coaches to get up to game speed and call games like that on the fly. Here is what Zach on Monday said about that play. Slow it down. Let us see the call. I can just do a better job of taking the information I'm hearing and giving it to Joe. I was quick to spit out, hey, let's get the ball and snap a play here, beat their challenge potentially, before realizing that's not the issue. At the time, we feel good about it. There wasn't a great replay that we would have seen in the booth that would have told us touchdown. And, he's got to be able to slow the game down and be in charge. The other one I'll give him a bit of a pass for was the one we were talking about after the game, the punt in overtime following the Burrow fumble that Samaje Perine picked up at midfield. Ball's dead there. He actually returned it to about the 41, I believe it was, 41 yard line. And at that spot, Darren Simmons acknowledged on Monday, they would have gone for the field goal.
Yep.
Mitchell Wilcox snapping the ball. But that wasn't to be the case. And in the confusion of getting the field goal team off the field, because they thought they had the ball initially at the Pittsburgh 40 to the balls at the 50 midfield, we got to punt this ball. They didn't communicate the fact to the punt team, you got to let the clock run down. All of that happened so quickly. I will give the Bengals, the coaching staff, the punt team a pass on that one.
You're nicer than I am, because if there's confusion, if things are chaotic, you're at the 50-yard line. Does it hurt to give Kevin Huber 5 extra yards to punt? A little extra room? Does it hurt to take a delay of game and make Pittsburgh decline it? It doesn't. And that's the part. You're right. There was a ton of confusion. A lot of things were going on. That's when anyone needs to say, hey, let's let this clock run down all the way down. Let's just take the delay of game. Because, by the way, what does Kevin Huber do? He punts it to the back of the end zone, which the whole purpose of him making this team was to put it inside the 10, inside the 15 there. So giving him an extra 5 yards, running that 13 seconds off the clock, it helps a defense that had played great all day, and it makes it much tougher on the Steelers. So that's the part. You could have taken the penalty and it would have benefited you. And it would have taken the pressure off of Mitch Wilcox with the clock running down and all of those things. That was the route to go, and they didn't do it.
Darren Simmons, special teams coordinator, brings up a terrific point on Monday, and that is one of the problems that the Bengals had in that situation, specifically Mitchell Wilcox, is he got up to the line of scrimmage and they didn't want him over the ball And yes, they should have just let the play clock run out and you wouldn't have run into this situation. But as it was, they felt that Mitchell Wilcox had to snap the ball because he was going to get lightheaded over the ball because he had been in a prone position over the ball, getting ready to snap for about 20 seconds. And he said a lot of people don't realize this, but a long snapper can get really tired. His legs can tense up. And then what happens in a situation like that? Your butt flies up just a little bit, your legs get tired, and you flip the ball over the punter, and then Pittsburgh's immediately in field goal position. So that's just, perspective. One of those small details in a situation that, coaches are paid to pay attention to that Simmons brought up that I think factored into it as well.
Sure. No, and it's those things are going to happen, right? You're going to have one here, one there. It was the fact that you had that. It was the fact that they decided not to go for two, right, on the extra point, and you might go for two. It was just there were a bunch of them, and it piled up very quickly. Deciding to kick the field goal, a 29-yard field goal, instead of putting the ball in Joe Burrow's hands on third.
Yes, that's another one I want to get to, but go ahead.
You know what I mean? And so if it was just one of these, now the challenge would have been mentioned regardless, because that's just such a bad decision. But it was all of these things. And so Burrow threw 4 picks. Zach Taylor made 4 decisions. And one cost the Bengals in the first half, and the other cost the Bengals down the stretch. And that's why they didn't win or tie, and instead lost the season opener.
So Darren Simmons says on the blocked point after on Jamar's touchdown with 2 seconds to go in regulation, that kick would have been blocked regardless if it were Clark Harris, Mitchell Wilcox, or Joe Blow snapping the ball back to Kevin Huber. Yeah. That's not the way I read that play. And this is my 2 cents on that whole situation. You knew you had a backup snapper on an extra point that is no longer 20 yards like it used to be several years ago. It's a moderate, it's still a short field goal, but there's a lot more that can go wrong in a situation like that. Again, the snap was good enough. It wasn't great. It was a little bit low. And I say in a situation like that, you take all risk and chance out of the equation. You go for 2, you don't make it, you still have overtime. I don't understand why the Bengals, and maybe you can enlighten me on this, why the Bengals were so quick out of hand to say we weren't even considering that. That surprises me. You?
Yeah. Yes, because so that's twice now, right? So that's twice that you're putting the ball in Mitch Wilcox's hand. And I get it. It's a more standard play. It's an automatic play instead of Joe Burrow's. And so that's the part that's like, man, okay, well, maybe you don't go for 2.
James, they had converted a 2-point conversion to Mike Thomas earlier in the game. And no, does that guarantee they're going to be 2 for 2 on 2-pointers? No, but it shows that they are capable of running a play to get the 2 points. And again, if they don't get the 2 points, James, go to overtime, which is obviously what they wound up doing anyway.
Yeah. And as far as that snap goes, Drew Sample picked wrong. No doubt about it.
Yes.
Also, that snap took about 7.97. Like you could run the 40-yard dash in the time that it got to Kevin Huber. And it's not like Minka grabbed the ball out of midair. Like he got a piece of it, but it still traveled. Like I don't think with Clark Harris there that he would have blocked it. So maybe he would have. But and there was a protection breakdown, and that can't happen. Everything needs to be perfect if you have a backup long snapper snapping.
That's the point that Darren Simmons was making there. And
no doubt, Drew Sample has to pick up the slack, and that's on it. But
and by the way, jumping in here, Simmons says Drew Sample, his responsibility on that play, on that error in blocking, is less than 25%. There were
really,
yes, he said that on Monday. He said, as much as it looks like Drew Sample missed that block, he could have done something to push Minka either more to the inside or push him out of the play to the outside. It was more on the blocking scheme, closer to the middle of the line of scrimmage. And that's where the breakdown really was.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, regardless, that breakdown can't happen. And so that's it was just a pattern of dumb errors
Yeah, it was
because the
just,
snap was accurate. It was accurate. It was just slow.
yes.
Okay. And so if they snap that on the field goal, then we're talking about a 1-0 Bengals team. But the other part of this, and it does come back to coaching, the Kevin Huber decision not to ground it, not to run out and throw
Right.
it away, not to, heck, just fall on it, take the loss and kick a 37-yarder. That ball, it's worse than I realized in real time. It's really high. He comes up. He has to get up off of his knee, comes up, grabs it, puts it down, and Evan McPherson hit the laces. And I said this, it looked like Madden, the kicking meter in Madden.
Yes.
It looked like someone accidentally pressed X at the wrong time, and it just went right to the left. Like, Trags, we've never seen, and we've watched hundreds of Evan McPherson kicks at this point.
Yes, no question.
He's never kicked a ball like that. And he took the blame after the game, and good for him. And he can make it with his left foot. And damn it, the reason you kick it on third down is if the snap is unplayable. And that is because the laces were facing Evan. Kevin, you gotta know to do something with that. And I get it. They'd say, oh, well, he got it down and all that. That was not a functional snap and hold. It wasn't.
What surprised me about Darren's answers yesterday, Monday, about that was we don't really have a chance to practice that. And I'm like, wait a minute, you don't practice bad snaps and downing the ball? That surprised me a little bit. And I don't want to misquote him. He was asked whether or not, Kevin Huber should have downed the ball there. And, in the moment, you've got to be able, especially if you're a veteran like Kevin Huber, to know, okay, this is a backup snapper. If there's anything off about this snap, I'm downing the ball and we're doing it again. Yeah. And the fact that he didn't do that surprised me. The fact that they don't practice bad snaps, or Simmons said that they don't practice bad snaps and prepare for that eventuality, surprised me a little bit. So, obviously that could have gone differently. But before that, James, you don't take the ball out of Joe Burrow's hands. Not when he's finally got the rhythm going at the end of regulation and in overtime. Let him finish the game at that point. I know they have red zone problems, but you have to let your best player win the game.
Yeah. 3rd and 8. That's Joe time, right? And the way Jamar Chase was playing, if they double team him and try to take him away, someone's going to be open. Hayden Hurst had just made a great play.
Yep.
It put Joe Mixon on the field, or Samaje Perine. I thought Perine played
Chris
pretty
Evans.
well. Like, Chris Evans didn't get a snap. He doesn't exist to the Bengals offense.
I don't get that
know.
either. Do you?
No, I don't. Especially when you're down, especially when you need some game-changing plays. Your defense is playing well, but they didn't force any turnovers, which is a big negative in a game like that. And they were close, to their credit, but they didn't. You need a big play. You need a splash play. You don't have T. Higgins. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't know what happened there, but you can't take the ball out of Joe Burrow's hands. And that's the one thing. Of the two things, I'm not worried that Joe Burrow's going to throw 4 picks this week. Do I worry that situationally Zach Taylor's going to get it right? I question that because it's a pattern. 4 picks, not a pattern. Not worried about it.
So everybody's saying, well, it reminded us of Green Bay. It reminded me of, Minnesota in the opener last season. It reminded me of the San Francisco game where Burrow was moving down the field and they settled for the field goal to go up 23-20, ironically. And San Francisco comes right down the field behind Jimmy G and wins the game. That's what that had the feel of. It was that kind of gut-punching game, a game where you really had no business losing the game once you got it to overtime. And in that game against San Francisco, they were also down 14 points, came back, late Jamar Chase touchdown. That was a spectacular grab, and they didn't get it done in overtime. All right. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here on Joe Burrow and him. I don't think he's going to have a game where the ball's in his hand 5 different times and 5 different times he turns the ball over. I just don't think that's happening again. I want to talk about the Dallas Cowboys. We're talking with James Rapien of SI.com, allbengals.com, the Locked In podcast, the only daily podcast devoted exclusively to your Cincinnati Bengals. James, they cannot lose this week to an injured, shorthanded Dallas Cowboys team. If they lose this week, and I know it's game 2, then I start having real problems. Cooper Rush, not Dak Prescott, is the quarterback of the Cowboys after Prescott had surgery on his fractured right thumb, this on Monday. So you got to beat the Cowboys. There is no ifs, ands, or buts.
Yeah, I don't care who's playing quarterback. I don't care if it's Dak. I don't care if it's Shaq. I don't care if it's Cooper Rush. I don't care if it's Cooper Kupp. Trags, they have to win this week. And yeah, Cooper Rush and people are going to bring up, there's been so many times where backup quarterbacks have played well against the Bengals. Mike White last year, right? That's the latest one. Bruce Gradkowski 15 years ago for Tampa Bay. I mean, there's always a guy.
On and on. Yes.
Yeah. And so I'm not going to go through that list, right? TJ Yates, anyways, in the playoff game. Oh my God. They got to handle business. And I expect them to, and everyone should expect them to. Look, they have a Micah Parsons in Dallas. They got a guy in Trevon Diggs, who's really, really good and can get interceptions. And you're going to watch him try to make some plays on the ball and things like that. But they should be able to get going on offense, consistent offense from this team, from this unit, starting with Joe Burrow. In this defense, they need to get after it now. And it's not like that Cowboys offense with Dak looked dynamic against Tampa Bay.
Right.
So it's time for them to go to Jerry World and make an impression on the rest of the league, where national media is talking about, are the Cowboys done 0-2? The Bengals just beat them 30-3. Like, they need to go there and show everyone that last week was just BS.
Yeah, and create turnovers. I mean, if you want to talk about positives on Sunday in the loss to the Steelers, the defense is certainly right at the top of the list. I thought they made play after play after play in the first half when Burrow was turning the ball over and over and over, and they kept the Bengals right there. They were down 17-6 at halftime. And certainly you did not feel the Steelers were going to run away and hide with Mitch Trubisky. The Bengals defense did their job, backed up on short fields. And I think that was the biggest positive for me, that this defense is certainly Super Bowl caliber. But like you said, if there's one area I think the defense needs to improve upon, and Zach Taylor mentioned this on Monday, it has to be creating turnovers. They didn't create the turnovers on Sunday. They tried. They had a couple of close calls, but they need to get the ball out of the opponent's hands.
No doubt about it, because it puts your offense in a position to take advantage of it, and rebound. If they had just forced a turnover, it might have given them the momentum, and they really didn't have the momentum at all until Chase catches that ball with 2 seconds to go. And then it was like, oh, okay, they're going to steal this one. So that would be huge. That'd be huge for this offense. It'd be huge for this offensive line. Just getting off to a good start. I think there's a scenario where if you get off to a good start against Pittsburgh, you're making Mitch Trubisky throw it. You can buckle down and kind of play, the way they wanted to play from ahead, and you win by 2 scores against Pittsburgh. And instead you're chasing the whole game because you turn it over.
You never put pressure on an offensive line of the Steelers that was there to be taken advantage of.
Exactly. And so that's the downside, right, of what that game was. This needs to be the opposite, where it's constant pressure. It's constant, man, I can't believe Cooper Rush is there. CeeDee Lamb's a good player. Dalton Schultz is a good player. They don't have a ton of weapons. Zeke Elliott isn't what he once was. Tony Pollard's fine, but fine isn't enough when Cooper Rush is the quarterback. And so, yeah, the Mike White thing is going to be discussed a lot.
No question. And as it should.
Yeah, I mean, that was ridiculous at the time. It's still ridiculous. The Bengals had no business losing to those Jets last year, and they have the Jets on the horizon, and it's going to be another backup in New York. So they're going to have to go back to back here. 2-1 is the only outcome that's acceptable after that loss in week 1. And it should have been 3-0. It's not. All right, move forward, get to 2-1, and it starts with Dallas on Sunday.
I don't think there's any question about that. I think it's very doable. And then you have the Miami game at home on Thursday night on a short week where the Dolphins have to come up here. And, yes, there's a pomp and circumstance once again, second straight year of the Ring of Honor. And then, names going up on the Ring of Honor, Isaac Curtis and Big Willie Anderson. That'll be a great night. But, first things first, take care of business against the Dallas Cowboys at Jerry World on Sunday afternoon. Hayden Hurst, I thought, looked great on Sunday. Your thoughts?
The catch, and I rewatched the game on Monday morning. The toe tap catch, unbelievable.
He got 3 feet down.
3 tap tap tap.
Tap.
The first down that he caught, where he catches the ball.
Yep,
and runs through multiple defenders and gets so excited. Those are the plays where it's like, man, he can be a big part of this offense. And I'm excited to watch him. I think he's a perfect fit. I thought it when they signed him. I never would have given Uzomah the type of money, that $8 million per year. I just wouldn't have. And that doesn't mean Hurst does everything Uzomah can do and does. I also don't think Uzomah can do everything Hurst does. He brings this explosive element, this playmaking element to this offense.
We'll finish up on this because it's also a storyline that should get talked about a lot this week. Lael Collins going back to Dallas. He did not look great on Sunday. I don't know how you viewed it going back and looking at the film. I just think he's still getting his feet under him, and he got blown by TJ Watt a couple of times, and he needs to get his base wider. I mean, it's that simple. He's got to be, and I don't know. We all saw him wearing an ankle brace on his right ankle at practice last Friday, and it was heavily taped. And we asked Zach about it after practice on Friday. And he said, yeah, that's something he's been managing, not recently, but actually from the start of training camp when he reported to the Bengals. So it's not a situation where the Bengals were caught off guard. They know he's been managing it. But you would figure this week of all weeks, he's going back to Dallas. He will play inspired against a guy like DeMarcus Lawrence, somebody like that. And he has to make a statement. And the tackles have to play better than they did against the Steelers.
They do. And, that's a tough matchup. TJ Watt is tough to face. Of the two, I'm actually more concerned with Jonah Williams, because Alex Highsmith isn't supposed to beat you like a drum. And he did. The 3 sacks and doing that. So yeah, Collins, I think the unit as a whole played much better in the second half and settled in.
I agree with that.
And so hopefully we see constant improvement. But yeah, that certainly wasn't what fans envisioned all offseason when they added the guys they added. So do I expect them to be better? Yes. I also think there's a guy named Micah Parsons who is a terror. And so it's going to be interesting to see how the Bengals combat him. And it's a good test from that aspect, because this offensive line needs to get rolling and needs to continue to improve. And because that's the key. If they aren't at least league average, there's a ceiling to this offense and there's a clear weakness to this offense. And I don't want there to be a ceiling, because they're too damn talented for that to be the case elsewhere. Quarterback, skill players. So hopefully this offensive line can continue to improve starting this week in Dallas. And it isn't just a Lael Collins revenge game. It's a Frank Pollock revenge game, who got fired for Paul Alexander. It's also a Chidobe Awuzie revenge game. And the Cowboys could desperately use Chidobe Awuzie right now. What a bad decision they made to not re-sign him for a 3-year, $21 million deal that the Bengals are laughing about, because he has played great through the 18 games now, regular season wise, that he's played.
Where are you going to go out on Saturday to get barbecue? Are we getting barbecue together on Saturday?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm in, man. I'm going to get to Dallas. I'm going to spend the weekend in Dallas. I've never been there, and I'm going to eat some really good food. I can't wait to check out Jerry World, and I get to compare it to SoFi Stadium, which is certainly going to be fun. And it's an exciting time. And again, this is, you're not labeling it a must win, but if you are who everyone's expecting you to be, at least Bengals fans are expecting you to be, you need to go to Jerry World. And Jerry needs to be answering questions about how Joe Burrow trotted in there and it was just guns a-blazing. And the Bengals just, mollywopped you, right? That is got to be the way it is. Like if they win 27-24 or something, that's not okay in this game. I thought it was okay in week 1.
Zach's never going to say that. He's like, we need to win a game by 1 point. That's what we're going to win, 7-6. And he said that throughout the season last year. But I will tell you that This has that same sort of feel that the Bengals had going into Chicago last year, but that was coming off a game they probably had no business winning against the Vikings, right? And they go in there and lose. And this year, they are coming off a game they really had no business winning or losing, I should say. They should have beaten the Steelers, didn't. And I think the urgency is going to be there a little bit more heading into Dallas.
It better be. It better be, because the how matters. And what I want to see is the offensive line looking much better. Burrow not sacked 7 times. He's really decisive with where he's going to the ball. He's sharp, going with the ball. He's really sharp. I want to see this defense really get after a Cooper Rush. I mean, they need to be firing on all cylinders and look like this hungry tiger. We'll use the Bengal reference. This hungry tiger that has been starving for a week that got embarrassed on Sunday, because it was a close game, but that's an embarrassing loss with the how. And so the how needs to change this week, even if it's a win. A win isn't enough. I'm not okay with just a win. The how matters.
Clearly
Protect Joe, the defense. Should they just limp it out of Dallas with a win?
No,
like if T can't play, go win by double digits.
All right. He is James Rapien. I want you to tell everybody following me on the JungleRoar podcast where they can find your stuff and what you may be working on this week.
A ton, right? We're going to have plenty on Joe Burrow and this offensive line, and whether it's Cincinnati Bengals talk. My guy Joe Goodberry is going to have his Bengals on the Brain Show on Tuesday night at 8. So there's going to be a lot of film breakdown. Focus on Burrow. Focus on this offensive line. And then allbengals.com, of course, and then daily on Locked On Bengals. So it's a lot of different platforms, a lot of different ways to follow, but yeah, we are in full swing here now that the season is underway. Trags.
He is James Rapien. Be sure to follow him on Twitter at James Rapien, all one word. He does a great job at allbengals.com. And be sure to subscribe to his podcast, Locked On Bengals. And speaking of podcasts, I want you to comment on and subscribe to. Be sure to follow me on the JungleRoar podcast YouTube page. Subscribe on the link below, and be sure to leave all comments, good, bad, and as I say, James, indifferent. I want to hear all comments that all Bengal fans have to contribute to the forum, because that's why we're here. We're here to give, and I'm sure you are as well, provide a forum for all Bengal fans who have an opinion on the Stripes. He is James Rapien. Oh, go ahead. I can't wait for Cowboy fans to say that idiot thinks the Bengals are going to beat the Cowboys. Cooper Rush season, baby. I want to see those comments too. All right. He is James Rapien. I'm Mike Petralia, Trags. James, you're the best. Thanks for watching.